there's this joke. The priest stands in front of the congregation and says, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that we have all the money we need for next year's budget. The bad news is that money is still in your pockets. So this Easter season, 2020, we are reading the book of Acts at St. Mary's, and there is one of those money in your pockets stories. It's the story in Acts 5 about Ananias and Sapphira. So at that time, all of the disciples were selling everything they had, and they gave that money to the church. Ananias comes in, he and his wife Sapphira had sold some property, and they brought in some of the proceeds, but not all of the money. Peter looks at him and basically says, you can kind of literally go to hell. And so Ananias falls dead, and people cart him off to bury him. And then a little while later, his wife Sapphira comes in, and Peter asks, basically tells her, you hear those footsteps, those are the people coming back from burying your husband, and now they're going to bury you. And so then Sapphira also falls dead. Now, this is a disturbing story, and it's not one we usually use during stewardship season at church. What I wanted to do today was not so much try to figure out the story, but to try to get a better idea of what Bible resources are there to understand Scripture better. And this is not a matter of looking for commentaries, looking for people's opinions about what any verses mean, but rather to get some academic resources. And so I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing I want to do is take a look at these two words, exegesis and eisegesis. And they're just fancy names for two ways of doing Bible interpretation. Exegesis is supposed to be more objective. It's the good one. Eisegesis is the subjective one. It's the bad one. In any case, we're going to try to do the first. We're going to try to do some exegesis. And that was the laugh track I used. How embarrassing. So what we can do, first of all, is to see what online Bibles there are. And if you were holding a Bible in your hands and you had to find Acts 5, you maybe could do it. But what if you had the wrong book in your hand? It's not even the Bible. You're standing outside of a library. You don't even know where the Bibles are. The internet is really great. You can type something like Acts 5 and hit return. And now you get, in fact, the first link is the Ananias and Sapphira story. So we click on that. And here is the text. And the text I was interested in were verses 5, where it says, a great fear seized all who heard what had happened. And then we can go a little bit lower in verse 11, there's similar text. Great fear seized the whole church. And it's that word fear that I was interested in, because it makes it sound like we should be afraid of God. And is that really the way we should think about this? This is the New International Version, but we can take a look at other versions as well. So, for example, oh, there are more up here. J.B. Phillips, that's one I was interested in taking a look. It's more of a paraphrase, kind of more modern. Some people consider it considerably more readable. And it's, as you can see, a paraphrase. So there isn't even a verse 5 and a verse 6. Rather, they're kind of edited together. And here, the text says, the people who were within earshot were appalled at this incident. And if we go down to verse 11, it says, a deep sense of awe swept over the whole church. So what should we be thinking? Is it a matter of fear, that we should fear what's happening? Or is it a matter of being appalled at one thing and feeling a sense of awe in another case? So another resource that's available on the Bible, on the internet, is something called an interlinear Bible. And so what that means is that different texts are all kind of put together. I'll show you in a second. When we do a search on the internet, the top couple of things are ads. So let's skip through the ads. And there is, not sure how to find where, oh, I see there's a little bit of a line here. So now the ads have finished, and now the top link we want is this one. And we have some choices we get to make. For example, let's start with the New International Version. And we want, oops, I'm sorry, we want the interlinear. And let's take a look now for Acts 5. And here we go. Now, this is a very interesting Bible. There are 5 lines, all laid one on top of another, which is what makes it interlinear. And with those 5 lines, it takes us a long while to get to the verses we're interested in. Here you see a verse number 1, 2, let's see where verse 5 is. Here is verse 5. So there's the Greek in the middle, the original language of Acts, and the English translations, word for word, right below it, tells you something about the grammar. If you don't recognize Greek letters, you can take a look at these words up here, and then kind of dictionary information. Where is the word we were interested in? Here it is, fear. And fear is phobos. If you can't read the Greek letters, it's right here. And so phobos, when we think about phobos or phobia, we think of things like acrophobia, acrobat, acronym, acropolis. Acro means high, and we think of acrophobia as being a fear of heights, not being appalled of heights or not having an awe of heights. It's a fear. And if we continue on to verse 11, what word is fear there? Here, fear, once again, is the Greek phobos. So it seems as though fear really is the right thing that we should be thinking. On the other hand, if we move the mouse and hover over that word, hopefully you can read this small text, but there are 3 meanings given for phobos. The first one suggests fear. The second one is the cause of the fear. And the third one is kind of reverence, respect. So there are these resources available for us to understand the original language, and that helps us with our interpretation and study of the Bible.